Also in the UK, the Lionesses, which is England's female soccer team, before every game this season, they have been taking a knee to stand against racism. And this was all
I thought
great.
they were just stretching.
Well, they're not standing against racism, are they?
They're kneeling against racism.
They are taking a powerful kneel against racism, except they've discovered that it actually doesn't end racism. Who would have thought? One of their defenders hasn't had a great season so far, and she's been copping it online and receiving a lot of online racial abuse, allegedly. And so this has caused the Lionesses to go, what's happened? We've been kneeling against racism this entire season.
Trying to kneel away the hate.
We are still being subject to racism.
Yeah.
So now they're going to take a step back from their kneel and reevaluate the strategies that they want to employ to truly stamp out racism. But the head of football's anti-discrimination body is not happy about this.
Oh.
Why have they stopped the kneel? They're asking. And apparently the two things aren't related, they're saying. Just because she's copping online racial abuse doesn't mean you should abandon the kneel. Just dig in further. I mean, I don't think these things do anything other than enrage viewers. And in fact, the more you bring up race and continue to talk about this as though it's a huge issue, the more it becomes an issue. Of course, there are racists in the world, and that's bad, but there will always be bigots in the world, unfortunately. And when you put yourself in the public eye, she has over 100,000 followers on social media, you'll cop it. I cop it. We cop it. Everyone cops it. That's life. But I am happy that one less infuriating virtue signalling event will happen at the women's football. Maybe that'll get their audience numbers up.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it just shows that this whole taking the knee thing was basically a fad that was employed by overprivileged people to show how right on they were and how progressive they were and how anti-racist they were. It doesn't seem to have, I can't think of any possible correlation it has between the well-being of people of other races and, you know, how many millionaire football players, you know, take the knee at the beginning of a match. I think this is just sort of crazy stuff, and you know, it's a bit sort of, you know, Black Lives Matter. Remember all that? That was going to stop racism, but then it turns out that the organisers were Marxists who used all the money to buy multiple houses for themselves on, I think, what is the US capitalist free market. But anyway, and you know, all this, you know, oh, have you heard this one? Death to the IDF. You know, oh, that'll be a thing for a while. And this is the problem with, I think, all these. And, you know, and I say this as someone who is sort of from the old left, who would like to see things like, you know, people in well-paying jobs, you know, more teachers and nurses, you know, the old-fashioned stuff, public education. I like all that stuff. But all this sort of wanky activist stuff that trendies pick up on, or, you know, tertiary educated, you know, overprivileged uni students pick up on, and then say, oh, we all have to do this, and then this will fix everything. Well, it doesn't actually fix everything. And worse still, it actually makes normal mainstream people think, well, hang on a minute, you're actually just a bunch of snot-nosed brats who don't know anything about the real problems. You're overprivileged yourself, but you're having a whinge. And then you're telling me to feel bad because I'm not doing what you're telling me to, even though I'm the poor punter with the meat pie and the beer, and you're the, you know, whatever it is, the $1 million athlete who says, you know, that I have to do better. Like,
well, it's because my understanding is that the taking the knee thing is done during the national anthem. That's where it started anyway.
That's where it started. National anthem,
and so by taking a knee during the national anthem and refusing to stand for the national anthem, you're not just saying, well, I have a problem with racism. You're saying I have a problem with the country at large, the country that you are there to represent. As if you're a lioness, you're representing England. So while your country's national anthem is being played and you are being paid to represent your country, you can't even stand up to show some pride in your country, presumably because you think your country is inherently racist. I come back to the previous point. It doesn't work. It doesn't change anyone's mind. It doesn't convince anyone that anything needs to be done about racism. Because if you go, you bunch of bloody white Brits, you're all racist, well, they're all going to turn and say, no, we're not. We've come to watch the football, as they'd call it in the UK, or soccer, as we'd call it here. We haven't come to be lectured about racism. You know, you're paid well enough to play sport. Just play sport, for heaven's sake, and leave the politics out of it.